Militarily Speaking, episode 68, the Headstrong Project.
This episode, we talk with Dan Kaepernik, Chief Executive Officer with the Headstrong Project.
Welcome to Militarily Speaking, brought to you by Armed Forces Bank. This is Tom McLean and Jodi Vickery. I am the Military Retail Executive for Armed Forces Bank, and Jodi is the Executive Vice President, Director of Consumer Banking. And celebrating an anniversary coming up, aren't you?
We talk about this a lot. At one point, I'm going to go look up when that is. Yes.
Yeah.
Too funny. So again, welcome to our show. We're excited to have you listening and learning all about our guest, Dan Kaepernik, with the Headstrong Project. Before we get going with all kinds of questions, Dan, we want to tell our audience a little bit about you. Dan grew up in New Jersey, where he graduated from the New Jersey Institute of Technology with a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Technology. Following graduation, he joined the United States Marine Corps as a commissioned officer and spent the next 20 years as a fighter pilot, flying the F-4 Phantom and the F/A-18 Hornet. So I Googled these planes before.
You did?
Yeah, they're very...
What'd you get?
They're pretty cool. Pretty cool. Dan's got a lot of courage, I will say, to fly such planes. During his time with the Marine Corps, he had numerous worldwide deployments in support of peacetime and combat operations. Following retirement, he began a retail career working for numerous Fortune 500 companies across multiple channels, including Delta Airlines, the Boeing Company, the Home Depot, 7-Eleven Inc., Wingstop Restaurants, and most recently, Black Rifle Coffee Company. I'm a big fan of the coffee. Any coffee company, really. During his retail career, he held positions from store general manager to head of U.S. restaurant and retail operations. Dan is married to the former Marcy Fisher, and they have 4 children. Dan and Marcy reside in rural country outside Atlanta, Georgia, with their 2 wonderful dogs, Rossi and Birdie. So I have a Chihuahua, Dan, named Chewy, but her nickname is Birdie. So we have that in common.
How'd you get there?
I have actually no idea how she got that nickname. But,
unless he chases birds.
Yeah, so we have that in common, Dan. Welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you on to talk about the Headstrong Project, and we're just grateful that you're here. We'd love to ask you just to tell our audience kind of a macro level about the Headstrong Project, and then we have all kinds of questions to pepper you with today.
Sure. I appreciate the invitation to come here from both of you, and it's a pleasure to be here and to talk about the project. At the Headstrong Project, really the overall goal is to help veterans triumph over trauma. The project, a little bit of background, was formed in 2012 by co-founders, United States Marine veterans Zach Eiskell, Dave Petrucco, and Al Rabel formed it. The original medical program was developed by Dr. Ann Beater in the Weill Cornell Medical Group out of New York. Really, the mission of the Headstrong Project, it's obviously we're a nonprofit, and we provide confidential, obstacle, and stigma-free, trauma-focused mental health care to veterans, service members, and their affected families. We provide individual and couples therapy, we do group therapy, we provide medication management, and we provide neurofeedback capacities. We currently operate in 17 states with in-person outpatient care, and we have the ability to provide telehealth services or virtual sessions in over 50 states. This past year, we delivered over 40,000 clinical sessions, serving over 2,200 individual clients. So we're really excited about what the future holds for the project, but as just a brief overview, that's kind of who we are and what we do.
It was interesting, Dan, to see the stats, too, on your website, which we'll talk about your website as we go through this conversation. But when 54% showed meaningful improvement in post-traumatic stress as a result of your involvement, 38% no longer meet clinical criteria for depression. And the one thing we track here is NPS, right? Net Promoter Score. And to have a 91, I think is what your website.
Correct.
I mean, we aspire to that number. We're getting pretty close to that on the Armed Forces Bank side. So we're proud of that kind of service delivery. But to have 91 score of those people would recommend you as a number you don't see very often. So congrats on that. And the 4-star Charity Navigator rating. So you're clicking on all cylinders.
Well, there's a couple other metrics too that I think are important here, and we can get into those as we go through the clinical conversations that we have upcoming. But there's some other really important ones that I want to have your guests and viewers take away from.
And we can do that, like you said, as the conversation goes, and Jodi will remember to get back to those if we don't cover them. So
I took a note.
Again, I said earlier when we kicked off today's podcast about Ned Freeze. Ned Freeze has been an awesome individual as part of the corporate partnerships and having conversations with us over the months. And I know Dr. Amy Williams, I'm sure you're proud of the work she's doing as Chief Clinical Officer. And when you think about the team of which you surround yourself and the importance of that, you've been there just a short period of time, Dan, and you probably came into a wonderful work environment with some talented people out there too. So why don't you talk to our audience a little bit about the talent of your team, but also what differentiates your organization from other organizations that are serving the military community, those with mental health issues. So cover those two areas for me.
Sure. Yeah, so great people deliver great results. And we want to hire the best possible folks that we can, provide some pretty clear guidance and strategy, gain alignment, and then let them do their jobs. That's a perfect example of that, as you suggested, as well as Dr. Amy Williams, Ed Lord, and the revenue team, and many, many others that we've brought aboard. When you think about the project and how we contrast ourselves with other organizations, and you look at the veteran support space, particularly for mental health, there's a lot of organizations out here trying to help solve this issue, and they're taking a lot of different approaches to it. You've got folks that are dealing with outdoor activities. You've got folks that are using canines, equine therapy. You've got this new psychedelic work that's being done. We take an approach that we're going to utilize measurement-based care through traditional core psychotherapies. Last year, we commissioned a RAND white paper to help benchmark best practices for clinical and organizational outcomes. And we're adjusting our tech stack internally to enable to support utilizing of those benchmarks. And we publish those on our website, and you've already mentioned a couple of them. A couple of things that differentiate us from others. There's 4 or 5 key things that I think are important. The first two are access and speed to care. We have a clinical network that's over 300 private practice therapists. They're either psychologists, psychiatrists, or licensed therapists. That's a pretty robust network. It is also very diverse. We have roughly 20% of our clinical network is BIPOC. 30% have a high level of experience in treating the LGBTQIA community. And so they understand it, and they have a high level of military cultural competence, which is really important when you're talking to veterans and trying to make a good connection between client and therapist. On the speed to care, we have an internal clinical team that you mentioned is led by Dr. Amy Williams. And she has a number of care coordinators that do intakes on clients that have come to our website for support. They provide what I would call a concierge level service to a client by what they try to do is to match that individual client, identify what their underlying issues are, and then match them with a therapist that we think is going to do the best job of getting the results the fastest. And so once someone comes to our website, our care coordinators are going to reach out in under 24 hours. And in many cases, it's going to be the same day. I've seen it where they've reached out within an hour to someone who's reaching out for care. Then the intake occurs, and then what Dr. Williams likes to call getting their butt in the seat in front of a therapist. and we're doing that now in under 13 days. So from the time somebody comes to the website till they agree to have an intake done by our care coordinators, until we can get a therapist scheduled with them, we're doing that in under 13 days. So that's super impressive. The second is going to be consistency and cost of care. We have the capacity within our clinical network to deliver weekly sessions. We've also begun within the clinical team piloting and testing an accelerated treatment program. So rather than a weekly session, you may get 4 to 5 sessions over a weekend to try to accelerate the healing process. The first 30 sessions are free. So there's no cost to the individual. It's provided 100% by the Headstrong Project. And lastly, I would say is the differentiator is our confidentiality. We don't share any information. We operate outside of insurance. We operate outside of the Veterans Administration. And so we have no requirements to share any information on a client with anyone. So I think those are probably 5 good areas that differentiate us from other programs or what I would just say is our value proposition.
Yeah, well said.
I like that. I mean, they're 5 very distinct characteristics of what you're doing, I think, that make it meaningful. And those might all 5 matter to everybody, or the confidentiality may be the thing that really causes somebody to be drawn to this, I would think. But on the website too, we noticed that the growth, as you've alluded to, the growth in the number of clients that you're serving and the sessions that you're offering, it's been steady and it's rising. And I would say with some significance. I don't think there's ever going to be a shortage of demand on this front. When you look at the available clinicians, I think you mentioned just now that you have 300 plus out there. How do you manage that? How do you balance the demand that you're seeing and add clinicians at the right pace to make sure that you're always able to fulfill that promise and get butts in seats, like you just said, in 13 days or less? I like that phrase too. I'm going to have to steal that.
You can say that through.
I'm going to have to say that to other people throughout my day today.
Yep. So we crossed a major threshold this year. A couple months back, we crossed 200,000 clinical sessions and 5,000 unique clients since inception. And over the next 5 years, we're gonna deliver 250,000 additional sessions. So what we did in the first 12 years, we're gonna exceed in the next 5 years. And we're really doing this through a concept or an initiative that we've come up with, which we're calling Mission Any Veteran Anywhere. We really want to take the approach that we want to be able to serve any veteran, no matter where they are within the U.S. And so we have an expansion plan where we're going into 2 new states a year for the foreseeable future. This year, we initiated services in North Carolina and Ohio. Next year in 2025, we'll initiate services in Michigan and South Carolina. And as we do that, we develop the clinical network within the state that we're going into. Recognize that a number of our clinicians are licensed in multiple states. And as we go into new states, we already have folks that are licensed to operate in that state. And so the other part that we do, and Ned's a key part of this, is developing relationships with revenue partners within those states that want to help support us with operations as we move into the state. And so that can be corporate partnerships, it could be foundational partnerships or individual partnerships. We work about a year out to develop the clinical network, develop the brand awareness within the state, client awareness within the state, so that we can go in with a high level of execution right from the start. And so if anybody wants to, if you like your question of clinicians that may want to get in touch with us, the headstrongproject.org is the website and can go directly to there and connect with us through the website.
Perfect.
So Dan, the screening process, right? We'll talk about the screening process for clinicians, and you talked about how they can reach out and get in touch with you. Just as we're careful with vendors at the bank, and you want to be careful on the branding side, like we do as well. So when it comes to how you select or what the process is for getting new clinicians to be part of Headstrong Project, walk us through that a little bit, and what makes your network of providers and therapists unique in treating veterans and military families as well. So hopefully that set you up.
Yeah, we take a look at, as we're going to go into a new state, or if we're expanding operations within an existing state and we need new clinicians, that really is our internal clinical team, the responsibility for recruitment. We have not had an issue recruiting clinicians that want to come work with us. We're very easy to work with. And we do some things here that are attractive to clinicians. We use the network that we already have. We have a number of folks on the clinical team that are well integrated within the clinician network, if you will. And so there's a lot of networking that's done there. They have to be expert in at least one of the 3 psychotherapies that we use, from EMDR to CBT or PE. At least one, we have many of our therapists that are expert in multiples there. And as I said earlier on, I think one of the most important parts is this military cultural competency. They have to be able to understand the veteran, the ability to relate, connect with them is super important. And we have interviewed with veterans on our staff here, potential clinicians that are coming aboard, to ensure that they have the ability to do that.
That makes so much sense, because they've just had different unique experiences.
And I think, Jodi, we do that the same at Armed Forces Bank, right? When 75, 80%, We just calculated it today. It's 84%.
Wow. It's gone up.
Of those that work for us, Dan, have a military connection, whether it's a spouse, a dependent, a veteran, and to understand the military lifestyle, just as you would want your clinicians to understand what it's like to be in that environment and to understand what it feels like. So good for you.
Absolutely, for sure. Super important. It's the relationship and connection building.
Yep. They start with that shared foundation, which I think would go a long ways in what you're working on with them. I think some of this is just introducing some terms and phrases to our audience too. You emphasize trauma-focused care. I'd like to ask you to explain what that means to our audience and why it's important for the clients that you serve.
So we only handle clients that have trauma-related difficulties. This could be post-traumatic stress disorder, but could also be depression, relationship, substance use, etc., related to the trauma that has occurred either before, during, or after service, right? Trauma-related difficulties are not just associated with military combat operations. They can happen in a lot of different ways. And so we focus in on one specific problem with this population, which allows us to be expert and truly be expert in what we do. Contrast that to kind of being a jack of all trades, if you will. An analogy to this would be going to an orthopedic surgeon versus a primary care physician when you break your leg. You want to go to that specialist that's going to get you taken care of the best that they can. And so it's one of the things that we try to focus on internally here is not allowing mission creep, so to speak, where we try to do additional things. We're going to focus on what we do, and we're going to do it really, really well. And there's many other organizations out there that will tackle all those other sundry issues that can come into play that we're just not going to handle.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. I mean, you know what you're really good at and what your clinicians you've recruited are good at. And I'm sure there are different kinds of ways to treat different things, trauma focus being one major area, but other issues or problems that present might require a totally different approach. So it's good, I think, that you're focused there. Yeah. Hey, everyone, we've got something special for our military listeners today.
Absolutely. If you're in the market for a new home, you've got to check out Armed Forces Bank's VA loans. They're designed specifically for you with competitive rates, no PMI, and no down payment required. And as an approved VA lender with VA certified underwriters, all decisioning is done in-house, which creates a more streamlined experience for veterans.
At Armed Forces Bank, about 75% of our team is affiliated with the military, so we know what it's like to serve. We've been supporting military families for over 100 years, so we've got your back every step of the way.
Whether you're active duty, a veteran, or a reservist, we are here to make your home buying process smooth and stress-free. And with our mortgage service guarantee, we'll close your loan on time or pay you $1,000.
So if you're ready to move into your dream home, head over to afbank.com or visit a branch near you. Armed Forces Bank, serving those who serve.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC, subject to credit approval. VA funding fee may apply. VA loan qualification guidelines apply. Third-party closing costs apply. Owner-occupied property only. So Dan, how do you actually reach potential veterans that need help that you provide, and perhaps more importantly, help them know that it's okay to ask for help? I think sometimes there's that stigma out there. That's their sense of pride. There's a sense of almost personal confidentiality that he or she won't want to come forward and ask for the help that's needed. So that stigma, we've had some guests on recently, Jodi, that talk about stigmas. And even with Wounded Warrior, not too long ago, we talked about that as well. And so talk to that a little bit, Dan.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because that was one of the original reasons why this project was founded in Zach's perspective, because of the obstacles and stigma associated with mental health care. And one of the areas that we take is the confidentiality. And so being confidential helps to alleviate a lot of that. I will say, though, that the openness to mental health care has changed over the years. I think people today are much more open to acknowledging that they may need some support at some point in their life and are willing to go do it. I think the veteran population is starting to open up to that, but we're going to continue with the confidentiality and to eliminate some of that stigma. And then a lot of the obstacles that we discussed earlier, the access and speed to care, the consistency and cost, Those are all obstacles to getting into care. But when you think about how do we reach veterans, it takes a community. And we have alliances with a number of veteran support organizations that we work in concert with to understand what they do. They understand what we do. They, in many cases, provide referrals to us. And so that's a large part of it, working with the veteran support organizations that are out there. We're continually working to build brand awareness so that folks understand who we are, what we do, and how they can connect with us. Also through our clinical network. I mean, we have a network of 300 clinicians that are already handling clients. And so you have a word of mouth advertisement there as well. So I think when you take all of those things together is how we go about it. And some states are much easier than others. I mean, if you take a look at Virginia, there's no shortage of clients that are going to come to the project. California being the same, North Carolina kind of the same. You move into some of the more rural areas where you don't have those dense metropolitan areas, it gets a little more difficult, but we're working on ways to do that in some of the areas that are more rural for us.
So this might be maybe a impossible to answer question, because I think there are probably reported statistics and then there are belief about the estimates of what really might be there. But how in your expert opinion, how widespread is the issue of PTSD within the military and veteran communities that you serve, whether it's the reported numbers that we can see in black and white or what we really think it's there under the surface?
You know, the unreported is probably significantly higher than the reported for sure. But when you take a look at just the reported statistics, estimates are 20% or higher have had some impact from post-traumatic stress disorder at some point. And when you think about 3.5 million veterans serving since the global war on terror started 20 some years ago, that's a population like 700,000 folks reported.
Mm-hmm.
Unreported, I don't know, it could be 1 million or higher. But if you just take that 700,000 number, that's greater than the population of Washington, D.C., which is pretty massive number. And to your point of the unreported, there are so many that just choose to suffer in silence and not do anything about it. So you can see that impact on community when you drive around of all the issues of homelessness, substance abuse, incarcerations, domestic issues, work issues that are impacting the community through the veteran population. And so folks that are not necessarily, I'm not saying that they all have some level of PTSD, but there's certainly an impact there that they're suffering in silence. The other thing that I would say is that this just doesn't impact the veteran. Your families, as I say, the extended families, workplace, community are all impacted through this. I think a really important thing to be aware of is the unfortunate comorbidity of suicide. And when you look at, there's just far too many veterans are choosing to die by suicide. The VA data is there for those that are, the number one cause of death is suicide. 120,000 since the global war on terror started. And that statistic is a year old. Then you contrast that with 7,500 combat-related deaths. That's a really telling statistic on the current state of where we are. And it's not good.
No, and you alluded to this, Dan, in your response too about, I guess, the tangential peripheral impacts that come with PTSD, but I think that the general consensus is people associate PTSD with combat, right? And there's other causes of PTSD that veterans can experience. And so as a family member or a friend or a coworker, what are some of the signs that we can sort of observe or witness to be more of an advocate, more aggressive in the advocacy to help? So talk about some of the signs around that.
Yeah, and one thing I would start with is not just a military issue. It's a national issue.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the military population suffers at a much higher rate than the general population does. But, you think about just being involved or witnessing tragedy or trauma, it can affect anyone. And that can happen from a car accident, could happen to be seeing someone go through a tragedy. It can be abusive relationships, sexual abuse. All are ways that someone can be impacted through trauma. Some of the signs of this are similar to a lot of other things. You've got anger issues, you've got sleep issues, substance abuse, kind of self-destructive behaviors, nightmares, avoiding people, scenarios that may trigger some things. And so I think when you take a look at a holistic approach like that and looking at the behaviors that folks are demonstrating is a pretty good indicator just to become involved in the conversation.
Right. In your history with the organization and your sort of being a subject matter expert yourself in this area, is this something that can be, is it curable, or is it just about management, recovery, and just sort of be in maintenance mode, right? Because sometimes if it's not curable, but you can certainly live with it and you can manage it.
Yeah, Dr. Williams will tell you that we can cure it, and it can be cured. Not saying 100% of the time, but one of the things that, or one of the areas that we work through is through these core psychotherapies that we use is helping an individual understand what's going on and manage. And so there is a level of that. How do you help yourself? And part of this is teaching individuals what to do and how to handle that. And you start thinking at it similar to an athletic endeavor where you're trying to teach a skill set or an athletic ability. We're trying to teach a mental ability here with clients to get them to the point where these former triggering issues just don't trigger any longer.
Right.
And if they do, they're able to manage that. And so that's your difference, as you say, between curing and managing.
Yeah, and I think it must help them to give a name to it, right? So they're experiencing all of these things, and they may not have connected the dots to realize that it's legitimate, it's real, and it's not their fault. And give it a name so that you can start to recognize it and call it for what it is, and find ways to work through it.
For sure.
Goes back to triumph over trauma. I'm going to keep saying that.
Yeah.
That's my favorite expression. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you or if there's any insights you'd share from Dr. Williams. Is any of that time bound? I would suspect, as a non-expert, that it probably is different for every individual. But is there a certain amount of time that somebody should give themselves to work through that process?
Yeah, I think what we can say is what we observe here. And to your point, it's going to be different for every individual and every situation, depending on the level of the impact. But as I said, our first 30 sessions are free of charge, and most folks are exiting treatment within those 30 sessions. And so if you think about a weekly session, you're basically a year's worth of therapy that someone's going to go through. And back to one of the metrics that we talked about earlier, I said I'd get to, it's one of the keys to this is coming back for continuing treatment. And 97% of our clients come back after the first session. And so there is a connection between veteran and therapist that is convincing them to continue coming back for treatment. That's super important.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 87% of our clients are going to go through 4 clinical sessions within 8 weeks. That's a very clear benchmark from the RAND white paper, and that we're continuing to push on. So there's a lot of factors that impact. Like I said, it's the level. What's the level of the trauma impact? What's their consistency and commitment to treatment? Can we use the accelerated treatment process to try to make things happen faster? And then what's the level of connection with the therapist? There are time to time where the relationship and connection there just doesn't work, and we'll adjust a therapist with a client if that's what's needed to continue their treatment.
And then kind of a tangential question, but as you were talking, it made me think of it. Do you offer support to the family around the veteran or the service member, to the spouse or dependents?
Yeah, we do couples therapy. So we work directly with the spouse. The family unit is super important. We are currently not providing total family support, but it's something that Dr. Williams, myself, and her team have had a lot of conversation of that we want to explore for 2025, because the family unit can be really supportive or it can be not supportive. And so being able to handle the whole family is important.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
You know, you've got the who's who list of Fortune 500 companies that are your partners out there. So I think I'm going a little bit on a side note here too, that it's nice to have those corporate ambassadors, if you will, besides the fact that you got Ned and other folks reaching out to these companies to get some support. You've got some very credible, reputable organizations that are in your corner. And it's nice to be able to get from a marketing or awareness or a business development strategy to get these companies to endorse you like that. So pretty cool. If people want to access care through the Headstrong Project, what are some of the steps that they can take? Or back to my point about corporations supporting you, how can individuals and companies reach out to you and provide the support you need to advance your mission or just provide support in other ways?
Sure. I mean, the providing support, you can come directly to the website and you can connect with us there and we can explore what type of a partnership you may want to have. If it's a company, if it's a foundation, individuals can donate straight through the website. If it's not a monetary support that they're looking for, would certainly ask them to connect with us on social media and continue to follow us and expand the brand there. We're on all the majors. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Headstrong Project. And then on Twitter, or more commonly, I guess, X today, is at Headstrong Proj, Proj, instead of project.
Okay.
And then if someone wants to come to us for care, the headstrongproject.org on the landing page is a Connect to Care portal on the very top right. All they got to do is click on it and answer 2 questions, and they'll get into us. And then our care coordinators will be reaching back out to them.
With an incredible response time. So we're going to keep talking about that. Speed to response is really important in this, especially in this field.
Absolutely. And it's something that is really important to us. And we've got 2 sets of customers here, if you will. We've got our clients that are coming to us, but we also have our clinical network. And being as supportive of our clinical network as we can and making things easy for them to do administratively so they can spend time working with clients rather than having to handle administrative tasks with us.
Yeah, I think all of that makes sense, making it easy, making it without stigma, the confidentiality that you've spoke of.
Yep.
I got to believe that over the time that you've done this, that you've encountered people, families, veterans that have touched you in a certain way that give you your why when you wake up in the morning. Certainly without disclosing anything that you shouldn't, or certainly not violating the confidentiality we've talked about. I don't know if there's a way that you could share any of those impact stories or even just one with our audience that gives us a view into why Dan gets up every morning and does this.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I was actually retired before I came here. I had retired from Black Rifle Coffee Company, and it was roughly 4 months later, I got a call asking if I would consider this. And to your point, any veteran that has been around, understand, and has seen the unfortunate impacts of trauma-focused issues, and they're going to have an impact on you. I have a number of friends that have gone through this, and I will say that for me personally, it is about watching what's occurred over the last 20 some years and the tempo of operations and how these folks have just gone back and forth through Afghanistan and Iraq and what they've had to observe and do and the impact on their families. This is me as a veteran saying, I am here to support you. And to me, that's a passion that I have. And, one of the questions that the board asked me when they hired me was, how long do you want to be here? And I said, I will be here as long as you want me. And that's my level of commitment to this. I believe that we have an obligation as a nation to help support service member getting back to being a productive member of family and community. And we're failing at that, in my opinion. And when I look at all of the veteran support organizations that are out there that are providing all kinds of benefit, from job training and placement to housing assistance, food safety, et cetera. But if we don't get the mental headspace right, that's the first step on the journey of getting back to being productive in family and community. And so that's why I look at this project as the first step on that journey. And we're going to deliver 100% as best we can to every individual who comes to us. That's why I get up in the morning and do it.
And if I were a board member, I'd say you can stay as long as you want, Dan.
I'll give you their phone numbers.
Your dogs may want you home.
Don't
more,
do that because Tom will call him and he'll bother him and
stalk him.
And that'll be weird.
I'll tell our audience what someone said about you, Dan. He is the type of person that it's a good thing. Well, I had to edit it, but yeah, it's a pretty good thing. He's the type of person that everyone wants on their team. I can recommend Dan without reservation on the basis of both his leadership and the results he consistently achieves. Hey, that's almost the bill of good standing, right? The bill of health that says your leadership puts Headstrong in great standing, and it's got a great vision and a great purpose and a great future. So congrats to you for getting this position, as well as all of your history with leadership roles through other companies in your career. So well done.
Well, I appreciate that, and very humbling. So thank you.
Is it time?
It is time.
It's time to play the game.
It is. Yes. So we are going to play the Military Minute before we wrap up, Dan. So
okay,
you could play along if you'd like. Military Minute. So I want to remind our audience, last week we had Court Ogilvie from National Military Family Association on. And the question last week was, what was the name of the university and the mascot for the university where Court graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree?
So let's tell Dan what the university is and see if he knows the nickname.
That's fair. But
yeah.
So do you know the mascot for Virginia Tech?
I knew he would have a connection problem on this one. What?
No. That I don't.
They're the Virginia Tech Hokies. I don't know what a Hokie is, but they are in fact the Virginia Tech Hokies. So if you're in our audience and you had that as your answer, watch for us to drop your name and you would have been selected to win $50 for yourself and $50 to a charity of your choice. And this week's question, Dan, I know for a fact you know the answer to, so please don't say it.
Dan actually said it in the podcast.
He did.
So there's two sources of
you can
reference
hit
points,
back, and rewind and find it in this podcast.
Or go to the website,
www.headstrongproject.org.
Right. Oh, so here's the question.
Yes. So the question this week, don't answer it, Dan, because you'll give it away, even though you already gave him the answer. This will require you to review either the website or the podcast or the 2023 annual report on their website. And we would like to know, yes, the trifecta, the percentage of clients who come for a first session that return for further treatment. I remember this stat because it was impressive. That's your only hint, people.
I know.
So if you know the answer or you are good at looking things up, make sure you drop your best answer in the comments, and then you can watch for yourself to also be selected to win $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice. So thank you, Dan, for humoring our Military Minute. It has been a treat to have you on here. I do want to say the website one more time, www.theheadstrongproject.org. Not only look for Military Minute answers, but to understand more about the organization, how to get involved, how to donate, how to access care if you're so inclined. But it's been a pleasure to have you on our podcast today and to get to know you a little bit.
Well, I appreciate the invite. It's great to talk with both of you. And like I said, if anybody ever has a question, feel free to reach out directly, and I'm more than happy to help.
And Dan, if you enjoyed today's episode, like Jodi did, go out to afbank.com and subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to rate us, leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And Dan, we're on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, so you can't hide. So well done. Nice job in the preparation and the informative and educational resources that you provided to our audience. So thanks again, Dan.
Thank you, and appreciate the invitation.
Thank you.
Bye.
Copyright Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein herein are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as IRS.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.